that old adage, guys, where they say timing is everything? Well, timing is definitely everything. I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving, and I hope you enjoyed your time with your family. I will finally be able to timely say that I have an adult computer. I'm very proud. In a couple of weeks, I will have a huge upgrade, and this memory issue we've been experiencing with some of these graphics should not be a problem. So if they are a problem, bear with me. But in a couple weeks from now, we should be smooth sailing. But I want to bring in my guys, Donnie and Gov. How are we doing?
Doing all right. It was a nice Thanksgiving.
Yep, had a great Thanksgiving. Lovely amount of food. Good football games. Go Kirk Cousins. Damn, I didn't have enough Jefferson. And wow, McKenzie. Wow.
Don't let anyone tell you that meaningless games are meaningless, because I covered a giant spread because of that garbage touchdown that Daniel Jones threw with like 5 seconds left to James. So every point counts, as Al Michaels would say. It matters to somebody, if you know what I mean. So that, to me, that's the kind of cool part about sports. So that's what makes sports fun for me, is like being able to wager within your means and be able to be like, I think this is going to happen, and I believe in it, and I have this feeling, and I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is. That doesn't mean like I'm gonna put a fortune on it, but I do think that like adds to the experience for me. Like, I know some sports fans get really jazzed up for going to the games and things of this nature, but for me, it's like putting my sports knowledge to the test. And as long as you do that responsibly, I think gambling is a great avenue to do that. But for some reason, it still gets a seedy reputation, which I'll probably just never understand.
I'm hoping that ends up going away, because more and more everyone I know talks about it like it's just backhand stuff. So like eventually it'll just be the background stuff, and people will be like, okay, it's fine. This is just the background thing that happens with this stuff.
I think it's the word itself, gambling. I think if it was more so referred on the like as sports betting and stuff like that, it would be differently viewed. I think it's the word gambling that just like throws people off.
So you think them transitioning to like calling it a sports book makes it better?
Yeah, don't call it casino. Yeah. Don't call it bookies, like a sports book. Yeah.
Right. Because it's weird, because like, I don't know how much we want to get in the weeds here, but I'll just mention this point. Like, everyone says like Happy Thanksgiving or like Merry Christmas, enjoy your holidays. It's so centered around food, and a family where I had a lot of overweight relatives and just people that struggle with like food, guilt and shame, and then that leads you to eat more. It's funny how you're allowed to say happy holidays to someone and enjoy your Thanksgiving and hope your turkey was good, all this stuff promoting food. But then there's so many more people that are addicted to food or have a bad relationship with food, and that doesn't get talked about. But the moment you mention you might have put a few shekels, responsibly, of course, I would never say you should not be responsible, but you're being responsible to have fun. I just don't understand, like Donnie's point. I think it's like the association. It's kind of funny because there's a lot of addictions that we kind of sweep under the rug.
There's a lot of addictions that are on TV with commercials that, and then they give us gruff over wanting to put $20 on whether one team beats another team.
Well, I mean, I'm glad it kind of went down this rabbit hole because we didn't plan it. And I feel like just like this conversation, we want to be authentic. You want to be genuine. You want conversations to spur. So maybe with some of our new viewership, we're going to kind of steer that narrative. Talking about steering a narrative, though, I think we got in here today and we were driving the same car today. We were on the same path. Our GPSs had aligned. It was probably the easiest spread selection we have ever made. So we can get right to that, and then we'll get to a lineup build, and then we can give our owning 2 individual picks near the end of the show, if that's okay.
That sounds good to me. We definitely had a consensus bet after looking at the line.
I was proud of us. It was the fastest I think we came to a consensus.
We just started all going through the games, like
Yeah.
the Ravens Jags game. Didn't like that line that much.
Mhm.
Maybe some conflictions on the Bengals Titans game, but yeah, we always kind of like the Falcons. Who doesn't? They cover so fucking much. Like, we started looking at everything, but all three of us were just like, yeah, we'll take that. Yeah.
I think this week's very hard to pick. The lines are very weird, I believe. I don't love much of the games this week at all.
No,
but last week we had a very interesting thing happen in the spread picks, as Logan went 1-1, putting his record at 9-11. I went 0-2, putting my record at 11-9, and Gov won both, putting him at 11-7-2.
See, now you guys are worried about the tie.
Yeah.
Tie only bothers me until it bothers you.
No, ties never bother me, man. I got a strong Adam's apple. Ties never bother me.
Push just means I didn't lose that week.
So, with that, I think I've lost my last 5 picks on the pick'em after starting off so good. I know I've lost my last 4. I can't remember how I did. I think I went, and it's 5 in a row for me.
You've had a couple of bad weeks, yes.
It's not looking good. After, I think I was 7-0 to start, and now I'm down to 11-9. We need to turn this around.
Well, and I'm being sincere when I say this, Danny. Like, sometimes you get unlucky, and then sometimes you get lucky, right? Like that garbage touchdown with Jones was considered luck. But the process of taking some of these high point totals just makes so much sense sometimes. Like, you're going to see it this week. We have like the Texans at +14. You have the Saints playing the 49ers at +9. Stuff like that. It's just like, especially when they play conservatively on the other side of the ball, like sometimes you just got to eat the number. It can be a good process. It just doesn't work out for you. But why don't we finish the update and then we'll give our consensus and then we'll start to build this lineup.
Yeah. So, well, we went through everything, the record and stuff. Our lock of the week also was the Falcons, and as they always do, they covered for us. Bless that team. 5-2 for our lock of the week. That is looking nice and pretty.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I'm not gonna apologize for it being the consistent, steady, and narrow. Because like, if it keeps working, why am I gonna fix it? You know, I'm not gonna get cute. They keep undervaluing the Falcons for how good they are. I don't think we would have got plus money, but I think everyone overvalues Pitts and what he's not done for that offense. And so him going to the IR, I think Vegas thought like that would affect their offense more, but I don't think it does. It might open up London for a lineup build. We'll find out here in a few minutes, but I don't think losing Pitts really does affect this team that much.
Yeah. And heading into week 12, our lock of the week is going to be the Texans at +14, because that is ridiculous.
Yep.
2 touchdowns.
You just look at it and be like, okay, I'll take the points. Okay. Give me 14 points. That's fine.
Yeah.
If the Texans get blown out, which they haven't really this year, except for losing by 18 to the Raiders, that's their biggest loss. Nothing else has hit 14 points. That's fine. Go ahead.
But what's crazy, Donnie, and this will be the last point, but it's not even the biggest spread of the week. The Rams.
That's true.
The Rams are at 15.5.
But at least we don't know who's playing quarterback for them.
Yeah. And at least you got Patrick Mahomes on the other side, which you know that's an explosive offense. And I'm not saying the Dolphins isn't explosive. I'm saying they like to run the ball. So, like, we're not necessarily going to get like a high-scoring game, because when you run the ball a lot, you run the clock, which obviously limits your possessions. And then obviously that's what the Texans want to do. So this could just be a low-scoring blowout, but still favor us, where the score
Exactly.
looks better than the outcome, if that makes sense.
Yep. Agreed.
Because I do that too, Gov. I don't view blowouts just by the final score. You gotta like watch the game and see
Exactly.
what goes on.
Because, like, what kind of blowout is it?
Right.
Because technically, 24-10 is a blowout. You won by 2 touchdowns.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not a high-scoring game. That's what I think this Dolphins game could be. Like, I could totally see Houston only putting up 10 points with Kyle Allen, running the ball with Damon Pierce in Miami, and then Miami just going full, like they have a Shanahan coach. You just go full Shanahan, and you have Jeff Wilson, and you run the ball most of the game. You hit your quick passes to Waddle, and you use Tyreek the way you always use him. But, like, I could definitely see Miami not putting up 30 points.
I actually see
And
the opposite.
Houston not putting up 2 touchdowns.
Well, and also, to another point, it's in Miami. So the Texans are not going to want to like run a hurry up offense or anything because they're going to be exhausted most likely. It's just, I think it all favors to a lower scoring game.
Not just that, Donnie, but
We're starting to get later in the year. It's not as hot in Miami, but it's still probably not going to be great for other teams. Yes.
Right.
Well, remember, we're just taking the points here. So we got both things covered. If Allen actually is better than Mills and actually pushes the ball, and Nico Collins, keeps his renaissance going with his crazy absurd amount of targets, all we need that game to do is stay close or, close enough with the running narrative. So I think it's one of the safest propositions on the board.
Agreed.
So,
That's why it's the perfect lot. We all have an agreement on this one. And it's just apparent.
Speaking of which, let's build out a lineup. And we talked about this very briefly. We don't normally do this. Usually we talk about players we might like, and then we kind of work it through with you guys because we're in such disagreement and we got to really workshop it. And those conversations are also great and transparent to have on the stream. But in full transparency, very quickly, I think we pretty much decided that Patrick Mahomes was our preferred option this week. If it wasn't Patrick Mahomes, though, Donnie, without knowing pricing, just name some quarterbacks you think are in good positions.
Geno, just because I think the Raiders' defense is that bad.
They are bad.
I don't disagree with that.
And I don't have another quarterback this week. I think if you're going to do another quarterback outside of those two, I would just look for a cheap guy that's starting, one of the backups.
Who's okay? So if I told you the cheap guys that were starting, which one would you choose? You ready, Donnie?
Yep.
Allen, Sam, Perkins, or John Warford. Basically Rams quarterback, Allen,
or Darnold.
I'm going Darnold just because that's a desperate team, and I like.
Hey, Darnold! Oh boy,
I like desperate.
Yeah, I went Darnold too.
Okay. I mean, I don't think we need to go that cheap because I think there are.
I completely agree.
Yeah. I'm in agreement. Mahomes is probably our guy. He is the most expensive quarterback on the slate, but he throws the ball. That's how their offense works. Now, that being said, Geno is in play because of how bad the Raiders defense can be, and Seattle is at home. But there is also a chance that they just run the ball with Ken Walker a lot of the time against this porous Raider defense too. So that's a maybe play. I love Burrow versus Tennessee this week because without Mixon, they are very high. They're going to have a very high pass rate over expectation. I 100% expect that. So Burrow could throw 50 passes this week. And I think that's just something I would want to get a piece of. And then
Burrow could.
Now, before we finish the Mahomes stack that we're going to do, I think we should get the best value on the slate.
Sky Moore.
And that's where I want to talk about the only other quarterback that I think would be viable. And that's because the best value and what's going to be the chalkiest player is going to be Jeff Wilson.
It's Wilson.
Yeah. The running back for the Dolphins. I think we're going to still play him because he's just in such a good spot.
Yeah. I think I'm going to say this, and I don't care. You can hold me to this Monday, Tuesday, whenever we do a video. If you don't play Wilson, given the opportunity, given that Mostert is 85% out, it's highly unlikely. They didn't say unlikely. They said highly unlikely. I think you were stupid if you don't play him.
I agreed. That's why, before we even finish the Mahomes stack, let's put him in there because we know he's just our lineups are an 8-man lineup we're trying to build because Wilson's already in it.
Yep. And I say that in full transparency. I do have a stupid lineup because I do think there's a way he fails, but I built, I think, 3, and every one of them but 1, and that's just my silly, stupid lineup. So I don't mean stupid in the bad way. I just mean if you don't play him, I think you're getting a bit.
That's where if you're not playing him, you should be leveraging off of him. And I think that's where the fourth quarterback comes in, where you could play Tua and say, okay, the reason he doesn't get there is because all he really gets is carries and yardage, and all the touchdowns still come through the air through Tua, Waddle, the tight ends, Tyreek, all of that. So there is that possibility in the Miami offense, but I still think it's more likely that it's just Jeff Wilson running the ball and getting the touchdowns. Maybe another back comes in to steal some touchdowns from Jeff Wilson, and they'll need a back to spell without Mostert. But
it would be Miles Gaskin.
Yeah, and we know Gaskin is proven that he'll be a solid backup, but he was never good enough to be the guy in Miami.
Before we get on to our stack, there is one receiver I really want to play.
Okay.
DK Metcalf.
I
have no problem with that.
Metcalf. Okay, we can do that. But Don, the reason I don't want to, I know you hadn't seen pricing. The reason we went with Jeff is we mentioned Mostert being out, but he's under 6K, and there's a ton of options this week. Gus Edwards is also could be playing.
P. Ryan's really cheap as well.
Yeah, P. Ryan at 5,600 as the starter, Foreman at 5,500.
I think
Carter with the Jets at 5,400. There are some good options in the mid-5 range, but I think Wilson is going to be the highest owned, and he is the best one.
Okay, so let's get DK in here, right?
Yeah.
So let's finish this game stack. We're going to do this. I want to recommend something. I think we should play Cam Akers in this lineup. And then we can get silly with every other position. We can obviously.
I'm not against playing the Rams running back. Are we sure it's going to be Cam Akers and not Kyron?
It's 2 guys. I think we're going to switch out. It depends. I think Akers gets the touchdowns.
Akers is the goal line back. Akers saw 15 touches on the ground, saw receiving work. I believe Williams only saw seven touches last week. I'll look that up just to be sure. But they're the same price. So what I would do, Gov, is if when we find that news out, I would just pivot to whoever starts.
Oh, okay, I thought he was one of the 4K guys. Okay, so no, that's fine. We can leave Cam Akers in there, but if they say Kyren is starting, then I go with Kyren.
Or do we go with one of the receivers because it came out today that Allen Robinson was severely limited in practice apparently?
I would avoid the receivers because you just don't know.
Yeah. I think the most
even more so than the running back.
I think if we're gonna bring it back with someone, because I'm not opposed in Kansas City stacks to not having to bring back. I don't think the Rams even need to put up offense for Mahomes to just still have 28 points on the board at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm if we have a bring back, I I'm fine with it being one of the running backs. Otherwise, I would say we stay away from Rams entirely. But it is good value to go with Akers or Kyron.
Yeah, that's the only reason why I say we go with it, because of the value in it. But I don't love it, but that's just
me neither.
They're
But
too cheap.
but if you don't love it, it's probably a good play. Like I always have the philosophy that at the end of the lineup, if there's one thing in it you just are like, I'm not so sure about that, it's probably a really good GPP lineup. Otherwise, it's probably too chalky. If you love every part of the lineup, there's probably something that's wrong.
I agree with that. And the reason I like this so much is because remember that like year where White started and then Michael Carter got all those dump offs? Perkins likes to swing out to his running backs a lot. If it was John Warford, I would be more enticed to go with Van Jefferson because he does tend to go towards Van Jefferson. But when we saw Perkins, he looks to dump off a lot. He's either looking to run or dump off. He's trying to run that efficiency type of offense where his completions are high and get the ball up quick.
Okay, so now let's finish the stack. We've said that and then put 3 other players in the lineup. It's like, all right, let's do the stack. But first, then let's do the
we gotta bring back to our stack.
Yeah, okay. Let's do the stack. But first, let's get the bring back. No, it's like, okay. So let's okay. But I think one of the reasons we've done that is we know we're putting Travis Kelce in this lineup.
I don't know that,
Mahomes,
but
it's Kelce. I'm not playing Mahomes and not playing like Kelce is his main target. That's like playing a car stack and not playing Devontae. It's like playing a cousin stack and not playing JJ. Like it's like it's their dude that's going to be the main guy that goes off if he goes off.
I agree with playing Kelce. That's like
yeah.
Now, we may end up playing him in the flex and doing another tight end for value, but I have to have Kelce in this lineup. So then it's just who do we double stack with, and do we double stack? I think we should.
I think we should because of the receiver value that might be on the.
I think it's Chiefs this week.
Yeah,
Sky Moore. I would agree. Like leaving him at minimum salary is a little criminal. Like he should be like 35 to 3,700, especially if Scantling's 4K. But like, 3K for Sky Moore, I'm kind of in.
Because here's the thing:
no Tony, no Hartman. Yeah.
Well, we know Scantling's going to be on the outside, right?
Yep.
And then Juju came back, so Juju's on the outside because he's probably the most raw talented receiver at this point with his experience.
He may move into the slot a little bit, but he'll play everywhere.
These 2 guys are their other slot options. They're both out. Tony was highly utilized only after like a week of practice in the slot. And then Hardman's on I think Sky Moore is obviously the play. And Sky Moore had already seen targets with Tony in the lineup. I think he saw 8 targets last week.
Well, not only that, but like we know Ramsey's also going to be on the outside, and he's not going to travel with anybody. But I don't think Ramsey will ever touch Sky Moore. So
the Sky Moore play. Remember, like week 1 or 2, Gov, where Greg Dortch was like 3K, and he had all this opportunity. Rondell Moore was out, which is funny because Rondell Moore is out again this week. Talk about flashback. But it's just like he's too cheap. This is a great opportunity. That's the kind of vibe I get with Sky Moore. So this is a better offense. So
also, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is out. Does that bring Sky Moore into the backfield 1 or 2 plays? Who knows?
Right.
How many jet sweeps might they run? Like, you're not wrong with that. Like that's why I think it's a little criminal that he's 3K. I think that's like Mahomes, Moore, Kelce might be the most common, or between that and then Mahomes, Kelce, Juju, but
nobody's going to be. No one will be playing it in a block theory with Akers.
No, I think we're getting different that way. and then we have the chalkiest running back on the slate, and what I believe is one of the two best players from that Seattle offense in Metcalf or Ken Walker. Nothing against Lockett. I'm just saying this week particularly.
So can we correlate the Metcalf thing and just go Adams?
I think I'd rather go Jacobs.
I don't think we can afford Adams.
That's why I think I'd rather go Jacobs.
Oh, we can afford him, but it would require some stuff.
It would require a minimum tight end. Let's look at defense first. Let's get our defense out the way, I think, because then we know where our price range is at.
For me, it's the Saints, and I'll let you guys discuss.
Well,
I wouldn't do the Saints mostly because San Fran does not throw enough where even if it's a low-scoring game, New Orleans defense won't, shut them down completely. Now, cheap defense, I'm not opposed to Jacksonville. They'll have near the same heat as Miami hosting Baltimore.
Yeah, I like this.
Jacksonville's coming off the bye.
I want to get down here, but I want to say Lamar Jackson is coming off a hip or thigh injury, so he might be running less than normal too. What were you saying, Donnie?
I know this is probably going to get shut down because it's awful correlation, but I don't think the Texans defense would be awful. If our pick'em says that we don't think this game's going to be a high scoring game anyway, I get we have Wilson.
I did it just because I needed to in one of my lineups. So I don't hate it, but it doesn't make too much sense.
It doesn't make too much sense. I know.
Yeah, no.
But maybe I don't think it's. If we didn't have Wilson, I would understand doing it. But I just wanted to bring them up. I want to be able to talk about every possible type thing that I feel.
What do you think about Jacksonville with Lamar possibly limited, and then Demarcus Robinson also was a late questionable add this week?
Well, if we play the Jacksonville defense, I always like to try and get Etienne in the lineup, but I don't know if we'd be able to fit that.
He's too expensive this week, in my opinion.
Well,
and I like Smith coming to Baltimore's defense since Smith came there is quite well. I could see this being a low-scoring game, which is kind of why I like Jacksonville this week.
Yeah, I don't mind Jacksonville defense. I think Jacksonville has a pretty good team.
Let's lock them in and see where we're at.
All right, 56 per wide receiver flex. That's not horrible. That's not horrible.
Can I recommend?
Can't really get a major dude, but we can still get some decent players.
Can I recommend what I think is the best player on the slate, and that's Mr. Keenan Allen?
I had a different receiver in mind.
I know what I want, but it's probably, again, I have maybe a little bit of a bias, so I'll let Donnie go first.
I was thinking Terry McLaurin.
Reasons.
I just like the connection between McLaurin and Heineke. Now, I get the argument of, does Terrell follow the top guy? Or
Terrell does follow this year, yeah.
That turns me off of it a little bit. But he's just so cheap, I feel like, for such a talented receiver.
See, and like I said earlier, even if we're not stacking them, I think without Mixon, there could be 50 pass attempts in that Cincinnati offense. And I kind of want to get one of their receivers.
Higgins?
If we could get Higgins, that's fine. I'd take Boyd.
I prefer
with
Boyd
Chase, who
week.
may be limited playing after 3 limited practices, but he's supposed to be back. I'd rather get Boyd. Higgins, but I'll take Boyd at 59. And just because like I said, there might be 50 pass attempts. Boyd could still get 9 to 10 targets in this game, even with Chase and Higgins getting 12 plus. That leaves us 5,400 for a flex. Let's see. What do we got?
I think we just missed out on Pacheco.
Well, I wouldn't like to play Pacheco at all anyway.
Okay,
Michael
Michael Carter's not horrible. Palmer No Williams instead of Keenan Allen. We
But-
could go Joshua Palmer.
Could I convince you guys Kittle and Kelsey this week?
I still can't believe DraftKings hasn't taken the stuff off of Melvin Gordon yet. I guess they can't take him out of the player pool, but they should let everyone know he's out. Put an FA next to it, free agent, something.
So for me,
I forgot there's Latavius Murray that you could play.
I wouldn't mind playing Kittle, but I do. My favorite plays in this range would be Carter and Palmer.
Mine are Carter, Palmer, and Marquise Brown coming back off the injury.
Mine would be Kittle and Cooks, just because I think he might have a bigger game with Allen.
Okay, so it looks like Palmer, because me and Go agree on Palmer.
Yeah.
Well,
if I had to choose between
that
Carter
would give us a
and
late
Palmer,
game hammer too.
If I had to choose between Carter and Palmer, I would prefer Carter. But
hold on though, because I actually like Paul. I like Gov's idea with Brown. So who would you choose between Palmer or Marquise Brown coming back from injury?
Palmer.
There it is.
That's a solid lineup right there.
That's
get us good I was saying late game hammer, but we have a late game stack. Everything we're doing is in the 4 o'clock. We're hoping Wilson chalk hits early and Jacksonville smashes as a good 12 plus point defense in the early game, and Boyd has 15 to 20 points because that Cincinnati offense does well, but not well enough where Chase or Boyd gets points, so Chase and Higgins do not go nuclear.
Well, Wilson's so chalky as well. If he doesn't explode, that's fine.
Yeah, it's not horrible. We were going to be whatever Wilson does is what us and 60% of the field will do.
But here's
40% of the field.
At what point does Wilson become a good play? Because some people will be silly and not play it for this.
23 points.
I think he is a good play. And
that's what I'm saying. It's
but you can't play all the good play because some of them are statistically they don't hit all the time.
You know how some people will overthink projections and sometimes they'll underthink it? Are people going to say, well, Wilson's such a good play, everyone's going to play him, and then nobody plays him? Obviously nobody in relativity to his ownership. I'm saying, at what point do you think he's a bad play ownership-wise?
He'd have to get above 70%.
You would have to get to 85%.
He'd have to get to the rake point in the tournament where it's okay, so if he busts, your lineup automatically has enough points to probably cash because everyone else has a bust score in it, and you won't.
Since we're only going to build one, we decided we were going to try to build one strong, really, really thought out lineup, and it's funny that we just agreed so well this week, which is kind of scary, but also kind of good. It kind of scares me and uncomfortable.
But even when I look at this lineup, I'm not a huge fan of Cam Akers.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Akers, and I'm not a huge fan of Palmer, but I think
Jags
it's a good
defense
lineup.
could totally bust. There's holes in this lineup, but it could also be when it could also ship something. It's very nice.
Yeah, you know what's funny is we watch a lot of content too, Gov, and I know JM to win from 1 week's season. I always like to shout out the people I hear news from. Some people like to, steal information or take little tidbits. I heard this from JM to win first, so I'll credit him. He said, as good as Patrick Mahomes is, it's one of the things that he's the highest owned quarterback. So people just don't want to pay for the highest owned quarterback. But when you got Wilson underpriced, when you have Cam Akers underpriced, I can agree with you, Cam Akers isn't the best running back. I would rather have Travis Etienne, correlated with the Jag defense. But when you have that price discount, it allows you to have the safety of a champion, of a heavyweight boxer. And sometimes people don't just take the heavyweight. They try to get cute with the featherweights too much. And he's saying that he thinks Patrick Mahomes' ownership is going to be under-owned because of that. Do you think that's true? Do you think like people say, well, tell us a story? So Donnie, if I said this lineup has to tell you a story, do you think people like want to tell you this grand like drunken story, so they want to play like Sam Ellinger or you know you know Sam Darnold and be like that one time in 1989 when I had I bought a brand new car with I just think that sometimes we don't play the best plays because we try to create this like fun narrative sometimes.
Yeah, I don't see the value in many of the cheaper guys, especially at quarterback this week. I think if you play a cheaper quarterback that's just trying to get too cute.
Yeah, it is the essence of Galaxy Brain. You are trying to overthink the lineup, and now you've thought it out into the universe where you're no longer back at Earth where you can win any money.
That's like the week where that guy played Bailey Zappi. Like, yeah, he wasn't that the lineup that got first place one week, and
I think there was a showdown like that where he played half the game. Yeah,
like that is okay, cool. No one thought that he was gonna,
I have to fight back a bit because I do have a Sam Darnold lineup because Sam rushes, and I think there is some cheap opportunity on the Panthers. Obviously, Gov's a huge Panthers guy, so he knows this. But the whole tight end room for the Panthers is totally depleted.
Okay,
so
but
I may play.
I'll counter this. Look at that defense that they're playing.
No,
like I agree, Sam Darnold's the guy out of the cheap quarterbacks, but they're playing the Broncos defense who doesn't give up points.
Oh, you mean the Adams who just put up like 40 fantasy points by himself? Could it be that we just overvalued the Denver defense?
More than likely, a bad Panthers team is not going to go out there and drop 30 points on a good Broncos offense.
You don't need it. You don't need 30 from a guy who is under 5K. This would be an example.
I'm not saying a player in general. I'm just saying like points wise in the game. I don't know if there's going to be that much points coming from the Panthers offense to get somebody up to a fantasy owner.
No, I agree. But I think Sam is a good play because you only need like 12 points from a guy like Sam. Well, I mean, look at this lineup and how much safety I have around it. Wilson, good play. Cam, that's the risky play with Sam. But then I go Adams, Hopkins, Allen, Andrews, Sky Moore for the correlation, and then the Saints defense. But so I mean, I was just pointing out for a theory perspective. So you can build what I think is a good Sam lineup. I would agree with you that the Mahomes lineup does look sexier though.
I just don't trust that Panthers offense really. I mean, and like you said, you don't really need that much points from Sam to hit value and stuff, but
right. Well, transparently, we built a Baker Mayfield lineup. Is that playing into your bias at all?
No, it literally is just the Broncos defense. If it was a week where they weren't playing what I think is probably a top 5 defense in the league.
Yeah. Their secondary is elite. I think they're starting to like show holes in the rush defense. Well, I'm not horribly afraid of Denver, to be honest.
Well, Gov, I don't even think it's their fault. I just think they're like, well, let's be honest. We're being honest this whole show. I think they're like, damn it, we gave up all this shit for Russell Wilson, and then they traded one of our guys away. They traded Chubb away. This defense is what got us here, damn it. And then they take one of our best defensive pass rushers and get rid of him. And we still have this quarterback that was supposed to be the savior of this team. And, and then they cut Melvin Gordon. So, like, it's just, like, weird to the sense they're not even playing to their strengths.
Well, Melvin Gordon's out there. Did you see, like, all the I don't know if it was a tweet or an Instagram post or whatever, but like what he's posting could easily get him never signed to a team again.
Well, you should argue that maybe he shouldn't have been signed from Denver. I mean, that guy is just he's not my characteristic of a player that I would sign. Not to say he's a terrible person. I don't know him personally, but just like the profile of player that he is just not my type of guy. On the field, off the field, it's all because, like, for example, Jamal Williams only has 2 fumbles in his whole career. Melvin Gordon, talented, but has like more fumbles than most 2 running back duos in the entire league. It's always been his issue. And then he's going to go off and spot off and say some things that are controversial. I don't know. Maybe that's the coaching mindset for me, but I just never really liked that.
Yeah. See, I think I like a team would have given him a chance, but now that he's going to go out and talk like terribly about his old team on social media, I just think that's a warrant to never. As a running back, I don't think you can come back from that.
I agree with all that. Yeah, that's it's hard. I think he's probably done.
Let me do some stuff with you guys on this because, like I said, I think like we can kind of play with this format of building, and we do it from a more theories perspective. Why don't we quickly go through some of this lineup and tell the people, like, maybe even it would be a good exercise for us is like, why do we play this guy, and then like what story where he fails and then succeeds? So like Patrick Mahomes, what does a successful Patrick Mahomes day look like for you, Donnie?
If Patrick Mahomes is having a successful day, I want to see like 35 fantasy points.
Yeah.
Which,
Like,
I at least want to.
I was about to say, give me an actual stat line. I'll convert it to fantasy points for you.
Look, I want to see a 300-yard game with 3 touchdowns and like 25 rushing yards about.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see. So 15 plus
35?
3 touchdowns. So there's 18. So you're at 33. Plus what'd you say? He was rushing for what?
Like 25 rushing yards.
Okay, so you're at 30. You're almost at 36 points there.
Yeah, like 35.
Because you have him going 300 yards, so he gets 12 plus the bonus on DK. He'll have 3 touchdowns. That's another 12 points. And then you get the rushing bonus. So he's actually like at 32 or 3. But yeah.
That's
right
the type
there.
of day I want.
Yeah, he could totally do that. Smash this play. He can totally do that and throw a 4th touchdown.
He can rush for a touchdown.
I was about to say he might rush for a touchdown and then only throw for like 275.
What I like about him is,
but that'll even out.
Let's say I tell you this story. He doesn't have a great day, right? Let's say he only throws for like 2 touchdowns, and he doesn't rush for much, but he throws one of the touchdowns to Sky Moore, so he only gets like 20 points, let's say. But Sky Moore gets you, 10.
Also gets you like 18 because
right.
He'll have like 6 catches for whatever yardage and a touchdown. So you 6 catches for like 70 yards and a touchdown, 60 yards and a touchdown, and he'll get you like 18 plus points.
So that common thread actually puts us ahead of a lot of other Mahomes lineups because it's like, well, how many had Mahomes and Sky Moore? Like, even if Patrick Mahomes throws some interceptions, but he throws like 9 passes to Kelsey, if we have Kelsey, Sky Moore, and then they're down in the game, where then they're passing more, then Sky Moore also eats. So I like the safety net we built here because it's either a blowout, and Patrick Mahomes is probably doing the blowing out, or you got the gunslinger who's got to sling the gun now to catch up or, to keep up. Donnie, your favorite play was DK Metcalf. So, Gov, why do you think DK Metcalf, like, if DK Metcalf fails, what would it look like?
If DK Metcalf fails, I think it's because one or both of these things happens.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Seattle's offense failing, which I don't think is very likely against the Raiders. or one of Lockett or Walker taking the majority of the usage from him, which is entirely possible. Although I believe the matchup would give it to Metcalf this week over Lockett. So if it is Geno and it is through the passing game, it should be a solid game for Metcalf. But I think the most likely way Metcalf fails is rushing by Kenneth Walker that slows the game down and causes them to not need to pass that much. Personally.
I agree with that. Donnie, the interesting thing for me about playing Joshua Palmer, who I obviously like Allen. You see he's in the other two of my lineups. But he is coming off of major injuries. He's had hamstring injuries in the past. If, like, he's limited in any way, like, Palmer is just a smash play. Like, it's almost like a tight end. He might not, like, blow the doors off, but, like, I think he's almost a guarantee for 10 points.
Maybe. I just think it's very possible that he completely fails and has like one catch on 4 targets for 2 yards or something like that, you know?
Wait, you think what's his failing rate look like?
I think like Palmer's, if he fails, it would be like one catch on 4 targets and only like 2 to 5 yards. Like, but I don't think that's very probable.
Donnie, I hate to call you out here, but you know he's seen 10 targets, 8 targets, 10 targets, 12 targets, and 6 targets in like the last consortium of games.
Yeah, but that's fine. It's not he's not going to have that stat line every single game, every week. Wide receivers don't usually get, especially one, at his level, is not usually going to get up to 10 targets consistently every week. There's going to be other guys like Keenan Allen coming in. Mike Williams. Are they both playing?
No, Mike Williams is out.
Mike Williams is out. Keenan Allen and Joshua Palmer are the top. Tight end Everett is back.
Does that really put a dent in Palmer's targets? Is Everett being there put a huge dent in Palmer's targets?
I think it actually helps it.
It probably helps him some, but like it does take targets away because they do use Everett a lot. Although all 3 of them can't Eckler, I don't know how, technically the Chargers have a lot of weapons and could do a lot of things. I just don't know if Herbert can spread that around like it can.
But I don't think there's many people on the Chargers that can play the Palmer role, that are big enough and fast enough to play on the outside. I think they're still going to want to have Keenan run over the middle. How about we do this? How about we have a little fun trivia, and then we'll give our picks and then get out of here, unless you guys had some other things you want to
I completely forgot about our spread picks, Logan.
You're good, buddy. But the trivia is, I know the answer to this. I want to see if you guys know it. There is one current player that lines up 90% of the time on one side of the field as a wide receiver. At 90% of the time. And the only other player in modern history to come close to that was Marvin Harrison, who played for the Colts with Peyton Manning. Do you know who that current wide receiver is that lines up, I believe, on the right side 90% of the time with this team?
Is it DK Metcalf?
It is not DK Metcalf.
Okay, then I only have one other guess. I'll let Donnie go, though.
Oh, man, I'm drawing up. Go ahead and give your second guess. I'm trying to think of a name. I have a feeling it's somebody it's going to be a deep ball threat.
I will say I got this stat from Monday Night Football and Joe Buck and Troy. So if they're wrong about this, I'll take the blame because I listened to it. But that's my sourcing.
Is it AJ Brown?
That's a good guess, but it's not AJ Brown.
Is it Hopkins?
It is Hopkins. You got it.
That was my second guess. I was about to say it's DeAndre, isn't it? It's DeAndre Hopkins.
Apparently, that's why some of his teammates started calling him the spider, because he doesn't move. He's sticky. He sticks in one spot. Like, people always thought it was the hands, but apparently, like, he likes I believe it was the right.
The way he can cut for all of his routes, he needs to be able to cut right and cut right and cut right, and then occasionally cut left to straight to the sideline.
Yeah. Now, the more and more I look at all my lines, but just the one that we built, like thinking about it, we got a ton of upside with this lineup because everyone's going to be scared to play Boyd with Chase. I feel like it's just
right, but there could be so much volume that it might not matter.
But you remember how even
we've seen it hit before too.
Yeah.
Well, like Keenan Allen came back last week, right?
And he had 8 targets for 94 yards. He was very solid.
Yeah, but I think he would have been under that though. Go to my point, had Mike Williams not been hurt, like there's a chance that Chase plays in the red zone and maybe scores a touchdown and gets some valuable touches. But there's a chance that Tyler Boyd and Higbee are like the go-to guys. That they rely on them for the gasoline.
Yeah, Higgins and Boyd might be used a lot inside the 20s and then just like situational Chase.
Right. And especially, let's assume Chase is good. Well, guess what?
Now, okay. Now the offense is clicking perfectly in the passing game.
But now you guys are way more bigger like Bengals stands than me. But wasn't Joe Mixon getting like 6 to 7 targets a week?
Yep. So like Samaje Perine is fine in that offense too. Like if we needed a different cheap running back, I forget what he's at, like 56. Like there's a good pivot off of Wilson. If you didn't want to play the Wilson chalk this week, there are good running backs like Perine and Michael Carter, Rashad White and Latavius Murray who are cheaper. Like there are solid running backs you can play. I'm not sure they're in like Rashad White's in a great spot. He's probably the next chalkiest running back to Wilson. Like those, like you're playing cash games. You're playing Rashad White and Jeff Wilson. Like that, just you're doing that.
And the Browns defense had been good in the past as an explosive, fun fantasy defense. So I think people still think of them that way, but they haven't been. They've been putrid on defense this year.
All right, I think that's a good lead off to get us into our spread picks now.
Yep.
That's a perfect.
That's a good player to have on the screen if you wanted me to give my first one. Because Rashad White is in a good matchup, and they're going to need to put up points because I don't think the Buccaneers are going to play well in Cleveland. So I'm taking the Cleveland Browns plus 3.5 as my first pick. The home dog.
Well,
I like. I don't like it.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Cleveland, honestly. I personally would rather go with a pick of just trusting that the Packers are really bad as they've looked for a while. Just stick with the Philly train that's been going on lately at plus 6.5, I think it is. Or minus 6.5.
I have minus 6.5. Yes, that's what I see.
I just think they'll control this game, and eventually Aaron Rodgers won't be able to keep up. Now, I don't know about this whole broken thumb thing. I think that's a little weird to come out now. That it seems like a kind of an excuse type thing, but I really don't like the Packers, and Philly has looked great.
They have, and I think people overvalue the fact that they've had some close games. It's because teams play hard for their coach sometimes, and the Colts have been playing hard. That doesn't mean the Eagles are terrible. They've only lost one game. I think teams are allowed to have a letdown game. The Packers have totally closed up shop. If it wasn't for Watson just like turning into a pumpkin and like having an absurd efficiency rate over the last 2 weeks, this team would be in really big trouble. You forget they lost Romeo Doubs. They don't have an identity. Rodgers looks like he's ready to go like on a murder mystery type show and like solve crimes or something. Like he has no interest in playing football. I don't think this year. Like it's just I don't know. He looks checked out.
I kind of agree with that.
Yeah,
I don't think the Packers have much of a shot in that game.
All right, Logan, what would your pick be?
I want the Saints.
The
I want the Saints
Saints?
+9.
+9. Yep.
They're playing for the division. I think they're the best team in that division. I think as time goes on, they're going to get healthier. And I feel like Andy Dalton and Landry, their timing got interrupted because obviously Andy didn't start for a while there. Landry's been hurt, but Landry and Dalton kind of like, if you think about how they play, I think the two of them should be a good pairing and it should marry. And then you got Chris Olave, who's probably the best rookie receiver so far this season. I like that offense coming alive. Kamara's still there. I think they're going to get Cameron Jordan back, which is a huge upgrade, and they might even get Davenport, which I think would be the first time all year that they had Davenport and Cameron Jordan healthy since week 1. So that would be huge. And you're going to give me 9 points on top of it with a conservative offense? Thanks very much. I'll take it.
I don't mind that. I think the points are a little like again another game where the points are so high where you just
Yeah,
don't have to
I think the Saints will keep that one close. San Fran doesn't blow out everybody. As good as their offense is, that has the ability to. I think people are betting on that ability more than the likelihood.
Yep.
All right, that leads us into our second round of picks. Gov, you are up.
All right. As I've talked about, I think there's going to be a lot of passing, and I think that they need to take control of the division here from Baltimore, and the Bengals will win. They'll cover. It's basically a pick 'em from what I see in Tennessee, -1, because Tennessee has a great record. They've been playing very well, but I trust Burrow in Cincinnati, so I'll take Burrow -1.
Yeah, that division's becoming very interesting. It's
Yeah,
when
because
do
you know the Steelers are nothing. The Browns are quietly in a position where Deshaun could make a run, and Baltimore hasn't pulled away from Cincinnati, which were the top two coming into the year.
and not to get too far ahead of ourselves, Baltimore and Cincinnati played last week of the season.
That is going to probably be for the division. 100%. It's just making sure you stay in position. And Baltimore so Baltimore losing to Jacksonville this week could be a major upset.
The
And
thing
something
is,
that could help Cincinnati immensely.
Cincinnati's schedule, just because I pulled it up just to see, Titans, Chiefs, Browns, with I think that would be Deshaun's.
That'll be Deshaun's second game.
Yup. Bucks, Pats, Bills, Ravens. That is a tough schedule.
Yeah, they have. Well, I mean, they were in the Super Bowl last year, so they should have a murderer's row in their schedule. And so, like, now the Pats is it in New England?
Pats is
or in Cincinnati?
At New England.
Oh, good Lord. Yeah, murderer's row. Yeah. So, like, I'm not saying it's great, but, like, that's why Cincinnati needs this game.
Well, it gets even worse for the Bengals.
Because, like, this game will help them where even if they're not in the division, they can now get a wild card spot.
Right. It gets even worse for the Bengals as the Ravens have the Jags, the Broncos, the Steelers, the Browns, the Falcons, the Steelers, the Bengals.
Yeah, they're going to get 2 gimmies against the Steelers.
Yep. And the Broncos haven't looked good. The Falcons always cover the spread, but that spread's going to be in the Ravens' favor.
Yeah. So, it doesn't look good. That's why I said, like, they need to play for tiebreakers. They need this game against Tennessee for the wild card slot in case they can't, like, keep pace with Baltimore. So,
hold on, I got some news. So it looks like, as of Pat Mayo's updated email as of a couple hours ago, he's hearing that Chase is likely out. Greg George, who is also 3K, would be a game time decision. Isaiah Likely is out. And then the Rams announced Perkins, for anyone that is going dumpster diving at quarterback, is the starter for the Rams. which I actually like more than Wolford because Perkins rushes. He's a harder quarterback to prepare for. I do think the Rams could push Mahomes, and that would help our lineup.
All right. My second pick is going to be basically another touchdown game. Not looking good for me considering I've made all these bad picks in a row, and I'm picking the favorites at almost touchdowns. But the Jets at -6, I think the Jets are just much better than the Bears. And with a hurt Fields, I'm going to have to do that. Even though
even with them benching Wilson for Mike White.
Yeah, because Wilson hasn't played great anyways. I think Mike White can at least be a better game manager. Not that I think Mike White's better than Zach Wilson, but he can be a better decision maker. And sometimes it's all a team needs.
Agreed with that. Not sure if they actually can cover the touchdown, but they, like the Bears do. In reality, the Bears actually suck. It's just Justin Fields that's been playing out of his mind the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Are kind of due to be blown out.
Yeah, no, like I said, they actually aren't good, but Fields has been a fantasy monster for 2 weeks or 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, he just got carted off the field last week. We really don't know how bad the injury is. Clearly, it's not too bad if they're going to let him play in his second year, and you could just say the season's over and tank. So it might not be that bad after all. But
we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah.
Smoke and mirrors. We'll see. Wait for inactives, people. Wait for inactives.
I just want to give, speaking of inactives, I just want to give people the most up-to-date information. It is official. Leonard Fournette is also out. So the white play is a good play. And also, if you guys are playing the showdown slate, because we like to diversify our portfolios, I mentioned almost every week, Jalen Warren is out. So Najee Harris would be the primary running back still, if any of you were playing that game. So I was thinking about what to do here. And I think I will take the Rams at 15.5 points against the Kansas City Chiefs. I think the Chiefs will win, but I think the Rams do keep it close. I'm a big preseason guy. I play a lot of preseason DFS, and Perkins is pretty good. If they gave Perkins like the true starting role and they didn't flip-flop like they tried to do a couple weeks ago against the Cardinals, I think Perkins could really develop some chemistry here. And I think Cam Akers has the chip on his shoulder. And I just feel like the Rams could actually be competitive here.
See, I don't have any proof of this. I have no idea if this is true, but I gotta guess this is the biggest spread for a defending Super Bowl champ ever, right? Like,
I mean, historically, probably not. Because there were some Super Bowl teams that actually like blew up afterwards. Hell, even my team with Cam, I think, had like a 12 something. Well, I mean, 15 is tough though. Like
15
this is over too. Like it's rough, but like there were teams that I'm.
But even the team with Cam, I'm saying defending champion, not made it to the Super Bowl, defending champion. It could be completely wrong, but it's got to be close.
Talk about champion. It looks like all those championship shares that people had of Kyle Pitts in their best balls, they're going to be done. Kyle Pitts has been rolled out for the rest of the season.
Oh, that's great. I actually just got him in my fantasy league, too. I traded for him. Side note, a sport that we've never talked about on this. I think we can end off on this if you guys are good.
Yep.
Team USA soccer Tuesday. If they win, they advance. So
yes. After the 0-0 tie with England, I believe they play Iran.
Yep, Iran.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm not a big soccer guy, but I like that we like.
I was going to pay more attention after group stage because I feel like group stage is like a preliminary, and then you get to the actual tournament.
Right, but I feel like it's a good thing to note. Go Team USA.
Yeah.
Well, here's what I like about it. Like, it seems like from a novice soccer guy who's like, I've genuinely tried the sport. I just don't think it's for me. But I will say, from all accounts, it looks like they built a really good farm system. And I'm a big fan of these sports that don't get a lot of attention. Like MMA and different things like that. And I know the dedication that will go into them when they don't get as much attention. I mean, I even covered the USFL. And we talked about guys getting second chances, and that would be a good preview. Next week, I kind of want to cover some XFL content just to get out ahead of it, because I do think we're big enough football fans. Speaking of soccer and all of football, that we can get ahead of things and kind of talk about who the quarterbacks are and the potential offenses for just some kind of funner summer activity.
Yeah, maybe we can probably take a little quick look at that. I have no problem with that.
I haven't really looked
with the
too much
draft.
into the rosters.
I know the draft just happened, so like we can take a good first look at the rosters.
Yeah, guys like AJ McCarron, I believe, is back. There's some actual, like, remember we did the USFL, like our first show go, and like we knew nobody. I actually knew like a good like.
And it's like these leagues are great in the off season. Like one of the guys we learned in the USFL, Cavante Turpin. He is the punt returner for the Dallas Cowboys right now.
And didn't he have a punt return or a kick return in his first game?
Yeah,
he's had a few solid ones. Like he proved that he's a good enough player to get a special team slot.
Well,
and he's excelled.
PJ Walker played next, and
right. I like that these guys get their shot with that. So like I'm okay looking at that. We're good.
And what I like too is the XFL put around actual coaches that aren't just like beer belly ready to like retire, like Jeff Fisher, for example. Like they got young guys that want to prove something. Like Heinz Ward is a coach over there. He's obviously never been a coach at a professional level, but now he gets a chance to be like, I'm still young and hungry.
Yeah, that's their Jeff Saturday hire.
Right. And so you see guys like that, and so like that's the stuff I like. That I think they're doing better than like the USFL did. But the USFL is going back too. So I don't know. Any slate where we can break things down in a sport I enjoy, as long as DraftKings doesn't mess it up. They messed the USFL big contest up, and I think that kind of put a stain on things. So let's not put a stain on this show. Let's wrap up before we get too long. Thanks, guys, for joining me. That'll be something to look forward to next week. I really like these lineups. Any last words?
That is it for me. Have a good rest of your weekend. Enjoy football tomorrow. Win some money.
Let's go, Shea. Let's go, LeBron. Everyone be great with all of your sports betting. Be safe. Be smart. And let's win.
I'm sorry we ran a bit long, but as Donnie said, good luck, Team USA.
Go USA. USA. USA.